Okay, in your organization, we talked about creating an actual flying site committee. That'd be your group that works. You get the resource materials. You schedule meetings so you meet on a regular basis. You don't want this thing just to sit and nothing happen. Even if nothing really new has occurred in the last little bit, you want to sit down and talk about what's going on, where you're going to move forward, who have you really talked to. Formulating the strategic plan gives you a long-term look at what you're going to do. What is the next step? Who is the next person you need to talk to? If you get a no or a stop, a closed door, what is your next step? So you got to make sure you have some sort of idea where you're going. And then you want to kind of create milestones along the way. Talk to the county commissioner, and they've given us a kind of a green light. So now we got to talk to the city planner on how we're going to do it. Okay, well, you can kind of check that off. Good, we got the green light, so we know where we are now. We're going to move to the next step, and so you create these little milestones, and that way you can get back to the club where you stand, and you report the progress to your club officers and members. Okay, we're going ahead with this one. This looks good. This looks good. And this is a stop, whatever. So you want to do that. Your initial search, a lot of things have changed. Thank goodness to the technology we have. Used to just, okay, we're going to go find a flying site. How are you going to do that? Well, you get in the car and drive around, hopefully. Well, now you got Google Earth. If you haven't looked on that, that's really a great piece of work that we can get our teeth in and look around. You might be surprised when you zoom back. In my area, I'm actually working on a flying site because I don't have a good flying site where I live. So I kind of looked around on Google Earth, and there was two runways in the area that were kind of grown over. I didn't really know what they were, but you could look at them and tell there was even kind of faint X's on the end of them. So I'm thinking, oh, what is that? So I'm new to the area, so I went and talked to some of the old timers. They didn't even have a clue what it was. So I'm digging around now trying to figure out what is this, and is it accessible, or what is it? So sometimes you could find things like that on Google Earth that you just don't even know exist. So that's a great resource and something you can sit down like right now and take a look in pretty much real time as what's in your area. Or if you have an idea of a site, you think this looks good, you can look at it and see, well, what does it really look like before I drive over there? There's all kinds of maps that are available, the U.S. Geological Survey maps. You can kind of zoom in on that as well. You can go to regional planning commissions. Lots of times they're planning parks or green space use. And if you can get your foot in the door there, I know of several clubs that have been able to get their foot in the door and get 600 acres of land for a model airplane park. The club I left in Pensacola, Florida, is on a 450-acre Escambia County model park. They have boats, control line, RC car track, radio control. They actually have two sites, one for sailplanes and one for regular power planes, all in one park, and that was free. The county paid for everything. Didn't have to pay for a lot, didn't really need a lot. But here again, we kind of were able to get our foot in the door at the right place at the right time, knowing the right person or talking to the right person, and get your foot in the door. It can happen. Zoning maps will also give you another idea of what's the county planning, what's the city planning, what's going on. Where do they look in their long-range plans? There may be an area that they're looking at, and you might be able to kind of say, well, let's look in that area because it fits in the long-range plan. And as of late, the EPA website. If you're aware of my predecessor, Joe Bashar, he worked to create a memorandum of understanding between the EPA and the AMA to where if the EPA or when the EPA completes a remedy on a site, that site is now recommended for use for model airplanes if it fits, the remedy fits with our use. And we actually have about a 10-minute DVD where the director of the EPA is stating all this. So, it's really good when you get a government agency, when you run into situations where a government agency might be giving you a little bit of a hard time. EPA is a pretty well-known government agency, and for them to give it a green light, that sometimes opens some doors for people. So the EPA website is on this memorandum of understanding on the fourth page. There's a link to the EPA website that shows where you can look by district and then by state on all the sites that have been completed or near completion with the remedy in your state. It goes by county and it gives all the locations. So you can look at those sites and determine, well, maybe there's one in my area. Those sites are prime for us because generally they're sites that can't be used for anything else. It's green space. And
is this part of Superfund?
Yes, this is Superfund stuff. That's exactly right. So, and the book has this link in it, but you can also go to the AMA website and go to the search engine and just type EPA, and it'll bring up, the first document that brings up is that Memorandum of Understanding. The 4th page down, it says how to find a flying site, how to find a Superfund site in your area, and there's a link. You just click on it, follow the information there on how the link works, and that'll bring you to a big list of what's available. And it's definitely one of the first places I point clubs, because generally this is free land or virtually no-cost land. Sometimes it's in the hands of EPA, sometimes it's in the hand of the local county. It might be a landfill, it might be whatever. But that's a point. And now we have a contact with the EPA. So if you look at something and you say, this looks interesting, I'd like to know more information about it, you let me know that. And I have a contact with the EPA that we call. They run through all that, understanding that they know what we want. They know what size, what field we're looking for, and we don't want stuff with all kind of hills. We want something kind of flat. And so they run all that through the EPA, and they get a resolution that says, yeah, we think the remedy and the use of this site is great for model airplanes. And then I can get that information back to you along with a contact person of whoever it is that's the management of that site. And so I'll actually give you a phone number, email address, and then you have a name to go call and say, hey, we're interested in it. And at the same time, our EPA contact has already contacted them, and they know that you're going to contact them about use for that site, and they already have a positive outlook on what's going to happen. So we've had a lot of success with this, and I wish more clubs would take the time to look and see what's available, because there's literally thousands of sites in the United States, literally thousands. And then federal land. Sometimes we've got a whole DVD on several clubs that are flying on federal parks, national parks. And sometimes you think, well, that's, no way we can get on that. But we've got park rangers and park administrators on video saying, man, this is great use of this space. It was just, before it was just, open pasture land and nothing was happening. Now we got this club that comes out here. They come out on Sunday and they bring 50 cars and their kids play, and all this site's now being used. And, if you think about it, parks, what they want is the facilities be used. That's their job. They're providing a service to the citizens of that area. So their whole plan is to provide sites. Now sometimes we've kind of butted heads with some parks people because they don't quite seem to see things the same way we do. But the bottom line, when it all comes down to it, is that's what they're there for, to provide a service to the citizens. And so, if we can work on them enough, usually they'll turn around and see what our plan is.
Ask a question about that?
Sure.
That's one of the problems we came up. We have a 3,000 acre, what's known as a county regional park, 3,000 acres.
Mm-hmm.
You can only walk on it. 3,000 acres. Flat hills, we found a perfect place to fly.
Well,
and that's what we come up against.
Right. And there's no automatic that things are going to happen, but here again, we're able to pull some resources and talk with other clubs who've had, flying on maybe a very similar situation. Or in many cases, when we talk to these EPA people that are local, like the local person that's working on this site, they don't think model airplanes should be flying here. They don't think you should be walking on it. And then I say, I got a video here you might want to look at. And it shows the director going, oh, this is a great use of the site. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, maybe we ought to think about it. And so lots of times those things do change their position. It's just a matter of you being able to provide them with some of that information and get it to the right person. And that's always key. You always find somebody, I won't say you always, but in many cases you'll find somebody who's just afraid to make a decision. And that's really where you fight it. If they're scared that if they do something that might not be happy with everybody else, and it may be a problem for them. So you have to kind of work around that and present it in such a way that it's a win-win situation for everybody. It's use of the site, it's what they're there for. You're not going to tear it up. We have a history of our clubs are very good at taking care of things. They're safety conscious. We clean up after ourselves. We don't destroy sites. So you put all this in a package to them, and yeah, it may take time, but generally, what I've seen so far has always turned out positive. It just sometimes takes a lot of time. At one of the facilities one of the meetings that I went to this past 2 or 3 months ago, met with a a morale, welfare, and recreation group who had just stripped out a 18-hole golf course and put a model airplane field there, runways, whole bit, and were contacting us to see if we could find any members that wanted to come out and fly. And I said, I wish I had one of you in every county and every town in the country, because, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So, you know, we obviously hooked him up with some members in that area code and said, hey, they've got a club field that's, you know, 800-foot long runway, 100-foot wide, parking, and a whole bit. It was just done. So that's in Texas. You might want to go to Texas. You have federal parks, you have state parks. So, you know, even state parks, that can be a place where you can look at something. We have even situations in county land and county parks and city parks where in some places, some states or some towns, it's actually illegal to fly a model airplane in a county park. Well, I've already had 2 members and 1 member specifically that fought that in his town and got the law changed. And he knows how to do that. And I've got him on, he said, I'll help any club that runs across that problem. If your town, you know, Los Angeles County says you can't fly in a city park, call me, I'll help you. I know how to do that, and we'll work towards that. It may take 3 years, but we'll get it done, you know. And so I've got resources to help you even get laws changed in order to fly models at a park. So don't always look at that. That's a block that you can't get it done. We just have to work at it. And in private land, a lot of private land is used, at least in my area. You have farmlands and a lot of things like that that's available. So farmland is not. That's a great resource, and a lot of people are flying on farmland. It's not maybe as permanent, and that's why we kind of push these government and state lands. If you can get your foot in the door with government or state lands, that seems to be the long-term solution if you can create a relationship to stay there. So we kind of start with that because to me that's like the best choice, and we'll work our way down. And not all situations are the same. Sometimes private land is the best opportunity. Yes, sir.
What's the best way to get in touch with the people that own the land if you find something that you believe is right?
Well, that varies so many different ways. You know, first off, you got to find the owner, and sometimes just calling them. But sometimes you want to develop a plan, a little bit of a plan ahead, to say, hey, can we go out and fly model airplanes on your field? Well, they don't have a clue what you're talking about. So part of it's going to go into what we're going to talk about selling the idea, thinking about your plan. How are you going to approach them? What are you going to do? What you want to do is show them that you being out there is good for them. In some cases, we had a guy here yesterday that said, we became the security force for them. They were there, they only use this site 6 days a year. And when we told them we wanted to fly the days that they weren't there, and we could provide free security, they were like, oh man, that's good for us. You'll be out there, you'll provide free security. Yeah, if somebody, you know, we get out there and somebody's doing something, we'll call somebody. And I know in Pensacola we have a club that has 7 flying fields down there. All those sites are owned by the Navy. It's Navy outlying fields. The reason we got them is because the Navy flies on them Monday through Friday, but Saturday and Sunday they don't do anything. And one field is really small. It's 2.5 square miles with 3 runways. 2 of them are 6,000 feet long. So it's a tiny little place. Yeah, obviously I'm being sarcastic, but it's a wonderful flying site. Everybody wants to go fly there. It's empty. Nobody is there. And all we had to do is say, well, we'll come out and be your free security. Said, great, come on out. Free, no charge. All we had to do was pay the $60 a year for the site insurance. So, you know, sites like that sometimes are available that you don't even know are there.